I want to emphasize this, that your code is not a reflection of who you are. Being a good developer does not mean that you are a good person. If you want to make it long term, be humble and code with a beginner's mindset. Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about gatekeeping in tech and why it needs to stop. If you like content like this, feel free to hit that like and subscribe. Now let's get back to the video. Recently, I've been getting into Twitter, specifically tech Twitter, and generally I would say it's been a pretty positive experience. I ended up being a power user, especially since I've been out of town for about 10 days, visiting all parts of France. It was such a great experience visiting Paris, Nice, Monaco, Saint-Tropez, so many amazing locations I never even considered going. Looking back, I know for a fact that I could never experience these special parts of my life without being a software developer. I want to dive into what opportunities being a developer can give and share my France experience. If that's something that you'd be interested in, let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure to make a video about that. But let's get back to the topic. As great as traveling was, I needed my alone time with my phone. Usually my vice is YouTube, but with data roaming costs, I knew that I needed another fix. Tech Twitter came to my rescue and I've been thoroughly enjoying it, reading a lot of great content, meeting a lot of new and familiar faces on Twitter Spaces, and the best of all, analyzing my metrics. Unfortunately, with every good that exists in this world, there seems to be some sort of controversy or heated debate that shows up, especially in tech Twitter. Long story short, as a tech community, we really need to stop gatekeeping. I'll repeat that again. We really need to stop gatekeeping. There always seems to be this notion that tech is for the elite, or you have to be some type of expert to truly be a software engineer. I've had so many people ask me about, is web developer and software engineer the same thing? People have also mentioned that if you do web development, then you're not truly a software engineer, or maybe not a software programmer. There's so many reasons why statements like these bother me, and I'll give you an explanation of why. Number one, this is just a no-win argument. These are just opinions and debates about very small details that in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't really matter. Who cares if you're called a developer or an engineer or developer relations? Every one of these roles requires some type of knowledge related to coding. Are you really going to look down at someone because their title doesn't say developer or engineer? I really feel like people that make these tweets are just doing it for the algorithm because, let's be honest, it triggers debate and discussions. But as influencers, I really think that we need to be careful about the advice and comments that we're giving. And that goes to my next point. If I'm a new and aspiring developer and I read some type of controversial debate about which technology is better and whatnot, I feel like my imposter syndrome will just get worse from this type of gatekeeping. I personally love being a software engineer because technically anyone from any background can do it. You don't need to have a computer science degree. You don't have to go to master's or get a PhD. You don't even have to go to a coding bootcamp. Everything can be self-taught. But seriously, when we start nitpicking at what it means to be a software engineer or debate about what is considered programming, it really does push a lot of people away from tech. If you're an experienced developer, I encourage you to leave your ego at the door and help rather than being overly critical unnecessarily. I'm not saying that we need to sugarcoat everything. It's always good to be honest, but please think about the type of advice that you're giving. So what actually triggered me to make this kind of video? I'm going to share you 2 tweets on Twitter that really got my attention. And the first one is actually mine. So I wrote, no one cares if you think HTML and or CSS is a programming language, just do it. For aspiring developers, focus on things that matter, like building, instead of getting caught up in silly debates. I'm not going to post the original tweet that caused me to write this, but when I read it and the comments, it felt like such a waste of time and breath. As an experienced developer, I really have no strong opinions about the nuances between HTML, CSS versus other programming languages. I just know that I needed to learn it and I still use it now to do my job. I mean, we've even involved doing CSS and JS using style components, emotion, and other various JavaScript CSS blend. Come on, at this point, knowing HTML and CSS is just part of being a developer. If I was a new developer reading about how HTML and CSS are not programming languages, I don't know how I would react. It's possible that I would abandon it, saying that it's not worth my time, it's not a real language. Someone that's an expert with 100,000 followers is telling me that HTML, CSS is not a programming language. Maybe I should just focus all my attention on Python and JavaScript, which is already pretty hard for a new developer to learn 2 languages simultaneously. There are just so many consequences that can happen because of such dangerous advice. I want to encourage all the new developers that you should just focus on building and not get caught up on these silly debates. At the end of the day, that's all it is, just debates. Learning from others is great, but your brain can only retain so much information. Don't waste your time on stuff like this. The second tweet I saw was from a fellow YouTuber that I followed, Danny Thompson. Let's take a read. This is the foolishness I'm dealing with today. Apparently, I have to pretend myself into jobs because to be a programmer, you need thousands of hours just to find a bug. Let's read what the actual commenter said. I like Danny Thompson, don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is that there's a big difference between programming and teaching people about programming. A big difference. If you want to be a programmer, you gotta put in thousands of hours on a single language just to start. Yes, you can pretend yourself into a job for a lot less hours or skills, but the bugs will take thousands of hours to find. No, we're not clapping. This is such a bad take. I found this pretty comical because I didn't think that this was real. If y'all didn't know, this is Tech Bro Gatekeeping 101. I didn't know I had to put in thousands of hours into a single language just to start, but I also need to spend thousands of hours to fix bugs. That's like 2,000 hours total to be a programmer. Who would have thought, right? That's the magic recipe. Comments like this are pretty ridiculous, and it's moments like this where I don't really like being in tech. It's already hard enough trying to get a job in tech, but now we have these online experts telling us to not even try unless we fit a certain mold or we just hit a certain criteria or number. Honestly, it just feels like we're just making up stuff as we go at this point. Another thing that bothered me was that this idea that you can just pretend yourself into getting a job. I personally know Danny, and I know for a fact that you just can't get to where he is without putting in the work. As developers, we put in so much priority into code that we don't think about the mental health aspect and support we need for being in such a tough industry like this. Why is this so wrong to encourage others? Some people might think it's over the top and cringy when reading some of his tweets, but hey, if you can help at least one person get through that day that's going through some struggles, that's a win in my opinion. To be a developer, you're going to need the technical skills, but let's not forget that you're going to be part of a team that interacts together. I want to emphasize this, that your code is not a reflection of who you are. Being a good developer does not mean that you are a good person. I've went through my ups and downs in this industry, mentally and physically. If you want to make it long term, be humble and code with the beginner's mindset. When I work with someone with less experience, I tend to avoid saying things like, oh, that's really simple, or oh, that's super easy to do. Because what may be easy for you now may not be easy for those individuals that you're working with. We've all been newbies and new developers before. Let's not put people down if they're not at the same level as you are. Gatekeeping in tech happens so much. Let's make it a priority to help each other and keep each other accountable so that we can all succeed. That's it for me today, guys. I hope that this was really helpful for you. Experienced developers, please just be careful about the type of advice you're giving. Aspiring developers, try to drown out the noise and avoid these kind of silly debates on Twitter. Focus on building, and I can assure you that you're on the right path to landing that job in tech. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Tech Rally out.